And welcome. This is Everyday Cannabis, and we are on a new streaming format through YouTube. Yeah, sit back, enjoy the show.
So here go a weed song.
Boom! Get your bongs ready. I love me some brother. Some good Wiz Khalifa, Heart and Soul. Great track. It's bongs for you guys. Boom. We'll be hitting that again with some dabs and fire. Alrighty then, so let's get into this fucking episode of Everyday Cannabis. I asked this week for some suggestions on topics, and I got them. I was asked about candies and baked goods and topicals and how to go about making them. We're going to actually cover all of the above today. We might cover a little bit of the growing process. Who knows how long I run and jibber and jabber and fuck around with this Naz. Share this link with your friends. Let's get them in here. Let's get them taught about cannabis. Today, I don't know. It's been a fun day, I guess. I fucking been chilling, smoking some bud. Actually, I've been smoking on some. What the fuck's it called? Some Kushberry, I think it's called. Yeah, it's all right. It's a OG Kush crossed with blueberry. At least that's what they say it is. I don't. Who knows these days? Everybody says everything's everything. But anyways, it's good Kush. You can taste the peppery, earthy taste, and it couch locks your face. I fucking love it. I want to talk about. I'm going to be hooking up a Skype call-in type shit so we can have people calling in. Like I'm gonna have my own Skype account for Everyday Cannabis that I'm gonna sign into. Whoever wants to fucking add it can add it, and then we'll take calls from there. You'll be onto this screen over here, which I will center better when we do that. And then we'll have some questions and content and people, and maybe we'll have Leon or see what the fuck's good. I hope everything's going all right here with my live stream. I have absolutely no fucking idea how to check it because that's how nab I am. And yeah, we'll see what's up here. Boom. Should be a live stream going. Yeah, just bear with me, people. This is my first YouTube. We are live, and we have a couple viewers. Thank you for tuning in, people. I just opened up the chat so I can hear and see what everyone's up. Hey, brother Frank, that's fucking awesome that Lee sent you here. Lee's one of my great friends. I've actually fucking known the guy almost 2 years now, maybe even a little longer than that. Yeah, we actually met at a well, I've known him forever through like Uncle Joey and his podcasting, etc., and his videos, all that jazz. But we actually ended up meeting face to face at a comedy thing in the Underground Comedy Club at a Steve Simone show. And I actually went down there to meet Lee, and then Steve was there with Lee, so I went and saw his show. It was awesome. Yeah, if you guys have questions, I can see the questions, so we will be answering them, which is key, I guess. Don't mind the stupid little Wirecast thing in the bottom. It's fucking stupid expensive to run one. When I find a better one, I'll get it. So let's get right into the show. First, we're going to start talking about some baked goods. A lot of people prefer baked goods over smoking because of the smoking aspect. Some people have irritable lungs or asthma or just don't like the fact of inputting carcinogens into their lungs by smoking things. If you're not really much of a vapor, because vaping to me gets me kind of the similar high as edibles. Edibles will wreck me way fucking harder than vaping, way quicker. But that's only because I can consume so much. If I could consume the same density in vaping, it would be a comparable type of body buzz. The key to making edibles is to know which foods infuse well with edibles. When you're going into making the edibles, you want to have a good tincture, or you want to have good base product to start with, like whether that's bud butter, can of butter, coconut oil butter, chia seed oil, like whatever the infusion is. You just want to have a good product at the beginning. Like you don't want to rinse and put moldy weed in your product, because you're going to end up with a shitty product. For all my edibles, some people don't do this. I do, because I don't like the green chlorophyll taste. That green chlorophyll taste is just like off-putting to me. I've had so many brownies that just taste like fucking leaves, and it just, I don't know, it ruined it for me, I guess. It might have been the bud butter as well, because I've had a bunch of that just tastes like greenery. So I use dabs. I take my cannabis, I grind it up, I decarboxylate it. So to decarboxylate your product, you're gonna want to put it. I like to use a sealed container, like a glass Pyrex pipe tray, like I use for blasting dabs. I'll use that. I'll spread all my product across, crumbled up across the tray, and then I'll wrap it with tin foil and keep it pretty tightly wrapped, to not let any like THC vapors or resins escape. And then you put it in the oven at about 220 to 230 degrees for about 40-45 minutes. And I like to take it out about halfway between, and then run a fork through it through the bud that's in the thing, and then even it all out, and then put it in for the rest of the remaining time. This activates it to be orally able to be consumed and absorbed through your system. So this is like a key process to doing all of that, is decarboxylation. A lot of people have like this huge, like, oh my god, it's this and that and whatever. It's essentially heating your product to break it down to the point that your stomach acids can break it down and your body can actually absorb the THC and CBDs. Now, that being said, I take the decarboxylated cannabis product and then I throw it into a glass blasting tube, which my blasting tube's about 2 feet long and about 2.5 inches thick. Like, so it's like this big around, and probably, I don't know, you can get them in various sizes. If you're only doing it for yourself, just get a small blasting tube. If you're doing a bigger batch for patients, etc., get a bigger one. Or if you're going to consume a large quantity, you get a bigger one. So you pack your decarboxylated product in there, you run it with butane. I buy canisters. They come in like a pressurized welding canister, and it's called hexane. And if they don't have hexane, I'll get N-butane, which is neutral butane. So it's just butane with no other additives, no smells, no scents, no propellants, no nothing. Like some of the canned butane, even the high-end stuff, will actually contain propane, because it helps propel the butane out a little better, at a more even stream. And you can do propane extractions too, but I use butane or hexane. Upon hitting it with that, I collect it into a Pyrex tray, scrape it off, and then you can either take that as it is and mix it into whatever fat that you're using. And by fat, I don't mean animal fat. You can mix it in animal fat like butter, but any type of omega fatty acid. So like chia seed oil, coconut oil. You can even use like canola and olive and vegetable and peanut oil, and you can infuse it into all of those. The peanut oil works good because it's high temperature of heat before it burns, but a lot of people are allergic to peanuts, so I don't recommend it for people who are making it to distribute to patients, etc. My preferred method is coconut oil. I take my coconut oil, I put it into a crock pot that has a warm setting. Some of them don't. Some of them just have a low setting. But if you get the ones that have warm and then low, and then you can adjust it from there. You put it in the warm. You add your coconut oil. You add your dabs that you just made. Your tincture, or your not your tincture, your concentrates off of your pie tray. And then once you add that into there, you let it sit and you stir it up every once in a while. You can leave it on there for a couple days if you really want to make sure everything's broken down into the coconut oil, but you don't really have to. I'll leave mine for 6 to 8 hours, and I'll stir it every couple hours just to make sure all the crap's off the side. And then from there, if you take it when it's hot and you put it into syringes and then put those syringes in the fridge, they'll harden up, and then you can. It's just the easier method to keep it. And then you can use that to add into your baked goods. But if you're using that to add into baked goods, make sure you add a higher concentration of dabs or concentrate into the product, because when you're only adding a little bit of that into your big tray of product, the medication is going to be distributed throughout the whole tray, so it's not going to be the same as if you're just squeezing it into your mouth. So if you're just squeezing it into your mouth, you'd probably want to use, say, 40 grams of plant material, and then you put it into the tray, you blast it out with the butane, and then you'd put it into the coconut oil. And then you could just eat it like that, and then you're not just going to get fucking stupid high. But if you're going to be using it as a tincture and you're going to be adding it to products like cookies or brownies or gummy bears or gummy worms or anything like what have you, you're going to want to make it a lot stronger than that, like you're upwards of 80 to 120 grams for the same amount of coconut oil that you would put 40 in. I'd put about, most people for butter, they use 10 grams of ground hash, and then you can put it into, if you put the 10 grams of ground hash into one stick of butter, I think it is, hold on, I gotta, yeah, sorry, 1 ounce of finely cut trim was the one that I pulled out of my book. So if 1 ounce of finely cut trim for 4 sticks or 1 pound of butter. That's the recipe book that I just pulled that out of, and that's for making butter. And we'll go into that recipe right now for making butter. If you want to go into making butter, you decarb your product off first. Same method. You take 4 cups of water, you put it into a pot, or whatever kind of pot boiling device. You can use a double boiler if you want. You're not like, if you're worried about burning it, use a double boiler, which is a pot within a pot with water. So the water's in the main pot, and then you add a bowl on top, and then you put water in that as well, because you're gonna need 4 cups of water in your pot that you're simmering in. If it's a double boiler, that goes in the top pot. You're gonna want roughly 3-4 cups of water. You're gonna want to stick your stick or two of butter in there, or like for me, a stick of butter is a whole pound of butter. If you stick 2 pounds of butter in there, you can do that, and then you bring it up to the point where the butter's all melted and everything's kind of boiling a little bit, and then you add your decarboxylated cannabis. You turn everything down to a low simmer. You don't have to cover it. You can. I don't recommend it, but you can. Just make sure that there's like an inch or two of water below the patty of butter and cannabis. So you don't want that to touch the bottom of the pan. You just want it to remain. You just want it to. Sorry, I'm totally lost. You want it to sit off the bottom, because if it touches the bottom, it'll burn, or can burn if you have your burner too hot. Let it boil, let it sit and simmer for about 3 hours. Again, if you're using a crock pot, put it on to not warm, put it on to low, let it simmer overnight, and then you can just scrape off the top. You throw everything into the refrigerator, and everything, all the butter and cannabis will solidify in the top. And then you can take it off of there, drain off all the water, press it into your containers, and you have cannabis butter. So yeah, now we'll get into my candy. My I don't have a recipe for candy. I have a method. Whatever recipe you get for hard candies, I like to do 300 degrees on the hard crack candy stage, because if you're doing You can do like 320, but if you do 320, it's like you're taking that whole candy and eating that whole thing because you're never going to break it up into small enough dosable pieces. But if you do it at 300, it leaves it a little kind of like easier to use, where you could cut it up into dosable pieces. So depending on how strong of doses you want, it's kind of just how it is. My rule of thumb is 10 grams of, if you use dabs or crystal or hash, per 40 candies is about 250 mils of candy. So just keep that in mind. If you want them stronger, you use less, obviously, or you just make a bigger batch of candy with the same amount. Um, I find 250 milligrams is a great dose. Everyone that I make them for who uses them on that capacity for painkillers, they love it. They say that 250 works for them. It'll work up to 6 hours, and they don't feel too groggy off of them. Any more than 250. So like if you make say 30 candies and you're running at about 300 milligrams per candy, you start getting into a territory where some people get uncomfortable, like uncomfortably high is what they call it. A lot of people have told me that I've gotten them uncomfortably high. Go figure. Um, yeah, so there's is that aspect of it as well. We can, if that doesn't really like work out for you, then we can talk about how to make, like I'll go in and post a whole recipe for them. If you Google hard candy and then you add it in at the same time where it tells you to add your color and flavoring, you add in your cannabis product. And then you stir everything up and then you pour it into your molds. As soon as you start to stir everything up, it's going to start to set up. So you want to pour it into your silicone molds, which you spray down with a releasing agent. It's just so they pop out easier. Uh, Lego bricks work awesome because then you can build little houses of stoners, the houses that stoners built. Now, topicals. This is a big thing. A lot of people don't know or understand how to make topicals. For topicals, you don't need to decarboxylate your product. You can, and it kind of gets decarboxylated during the process of making the topical. If you want to start out with a decarb product, you can, but a lot of people for topicals they use leaf. You can get trim off of growers for dirt cheap. If you know a grower, ask him if you can put in a couple hours at the trim table and take home the trim, and they're more than likely going to say yes. I use beeswax and then a variety of oils depending on who is wanting what and how I want to make it. So I like using emu oil. I use it in after the fact. I don't put it into the recipe. After everything's already solidified up in the fridge, I take the emu oil, I'll add it into the product, and then I'll stir it up. And what emu oil does is it ends up opening your pores up, and it makes the delivery of the cannabinoids, cannabinols, and cannabidiols, and the THCAs through your skin a lot easier because it will actually dilate the capillaries in your skin, and the medication gets in easier. Um, so I use beeswax, and then usually I use coconut oil because I like coconut oil. The moisturizing properties of coconut oil are great, but some people it's too greasy. Any of these are gonna be a little greasy. It's just how the nature of the game because you need to have the fat soluble product. Like the THC is fat soluble, so you have to have the fat to have the product in it. Um, the way that I make my topicals is I take my whatever I'm making, like whatever oil I'm using, whether it's olive oil, coconut oil, vegetable oil, peanut oil, chia seed oil, etc., 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 hemp seed oil. um, if you take that, you heat it up in a pan. I like the lower settings. Like if your burner goes to 8, put it at like 2. You put that in your pan. You're gonna want, depending on the size of batch, you're gonna want probably about a cup or two. You put all your leaf product in the pot, and essentially you just cover up that leaf product, just so everything's wet. So when you stir it up, everything's soaking wet. And then you just let it warm up and go through that whole process for about 45 to 50 minutes. Stir it up some more, and then what I like to do is I take a little strainer. I put it over a mason jar, and then you put your leaf product in there, and then squeeze it out with the back of a spoon. This is going to be your base medicated product. So once you have that all strained out, you take all your product, you push it down, you make sure you can get all the oil out of your cannabis. You throw the cannabis away because now you have everything you want into the concentrated extract tincture, sorry, at the bottom. You take that and you heat up your beeswax because you're going to want to have your beeswax. Most recipes will call for upwards of an ounce of beeswax. I like using like 14 to 18 grams of beeswax. If you want it firmer product, then you use a little more beeswax. I've never come across a case where I'll actually use an ounce of beeswax. It's just, it's never happened for me. It's just, I've tried and it makes it too thick, and then I have to add a bunch of emu oil to thin it out, and it just, I don't like it. Um, so, if for my topicals, I'll use 4 ounces of trim, 14 to 18 grams of beeswax, and then at the end I'll add a couple tablespoons of emu oil. You can get 100% emu oil, or you can get lesser percentages that are mixed in with other products like vitamin E and vitamin D and other moisturizing products. So you can use either or. You just want to make sure that there's a little bit of emu oil in there because it uptakes in the skin a lot faster. Um, Topicals are good for muscle pain, arthritic pain. They're good for cramping. They're just an all around good product. With the difference between topicals and edibles and smoking products is that topicals won't get you high. Like, you won't feel silly on topicals. You just won't. You'll feel fine. You'll feel like the pain will subside. Some people get a warm sensation. Depending on the person, they'll get like a warming sensation on the area that it's applied. And then what ends up happening is, because it's an analgesic, I think is the word, analgesic, and it's an anti-inflammatory as well. So that helps to release muscles and tension and pain. And with arthritis, it helps to just relax the tendons and ligaments that are pressing down onto the arthritis itself. Um, I know a lot of patients that actually prefer topicals over any other form of medicating because they don't actually like to get high. Me, on the other hand, I love to get high when I'm medicating. It's just like one of the pluses. Uh, with that, I have a couple other things to cover, but we're going to have a dab break. I don't know if any of you fuckers watching got some dabs, but load them up because we're going in. I'm using a highly educated nail on a Cheech bong, unfortunately, because my Redbeard glass bong got broken by the dog. Damn dogs. Fuck. Got some blowtorch action happening now. Get this going. Dabs out. Nail heating. Boom. Come on, stay. Right here we have some pink kush dabs. These were made off of that pink kush that I had last time I had the podcast on Periscope. And I'm almost out, but we're going to be doing a heroic size dab because that's all I got out here. By heroic, I don't mean crazy. I've done some crazy dabs. I did two 2-gram dabs back to back as a contest. I won a nail that was worth $20, and I was higher than I've ever been. That was at the, I want to say it was the Treating Yourself Expo in Toronto, which was a blast. I'm not sure if it was. It might have been Champs. So here's a dab, and here we go. Well, good luck, guys. And now I gotta try not to die because dabs will fucking kill the best of you, even if you're not an amateur. And we are gravy. Oh. So that's that. Dab done. Bong put away. Whew. That's a buzz. I love dabs. They're great. Make you sweat. So let's check the chat. And other than Brother Frank, we have had no one say anything in the chat. So thank you, Brother Frank, for participation. You do get the participation award at this point. Everybody else be slacking. Okay, so I was asked about storage. One of the questions that came up, I actually got asked twice about storage. For long-term storage and short-term storage, and that's kind of both the same for me. For short-term storage, like we're talking 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I'll use a mason jar, just a glass mason jar with a sealed lid. It works the best I found. It keeps the humidity in, it doesn't get all dry and chunky, you know it's fucking sealed, versus these little gizmos and gadgets and this and that and the other thing that you don't really know that they're sealed. Like even Ziploc bags, they'll get holes in them, etc. One thing to keep in mind is that UV light destroys THC, CBD, cannabidiol, cannabinol, etc. It just destroys it. So you want to have light-proof containers for long-term storage. If you're just doing a small amount and it's just yourself and it's for yourself, I'd recommend using Sea Vaults. They're great products. The one thing that I don't like about them is that they have like these little refill packs to keep the humidity exactly what you want. They just essentially have like a bit of moisture in them, and you can add a bit if you add a couple drops to it, etc., etc., and it'll just keep the humidity even. But if the jar is sealed, then there shouldn't be any humidity leaking. Like period. Like it's got nowhere to go. For long-term storage, what I do, because sea vaults are so fucking expensive, even on a large scale, like if you buy the biggest one you can get, I think it holds 3 pounds, and at even at that scale, you're looking at like $300 a container, and for when I used to do my big harvest, I'd need 100 of those fucking containers, so it's not cost effective, and everybody has mason jars and everybody has closed cabinets, so if you put one into the other, it just sort of eliminates the light. You feel me? Um, sure, you might not get 100% light seal, but if you want that, then you just use a foam gasket, window seal gasket that you can get on to. You can get them at the hardware store. Any hardware store has them. Um, that would be the way that I would recommend doing it, because you can mark down on your jars. If you take masking tape, you can mark down on your jars when it was harvested, when it started curing, when you think that the cure is going to be done, when you checked it, how it was, how the humidity was, how the buds were, when you checked it. Like if you use masking tape, you can put like 3 or 4 strips next to each other, have all your information on the strain. That's the way I like to do it, because then you can have all the strains. And if you get the big mason jars, like they do hold quite a bit. I can fit about 4 ounces in a jar, without crushing the buds down. That's another thing. You don't want to have everything compacted and tight into a jar, because that's how you'll get mold, and mold buildup. It's just a bad idea to keep your shit really tight with no airflow. And it's also a bad idea that if it's really humid when you put it in there, to leave it in there with the lid on and not look at it for a few months. You're going to want to look at it and open it up and let some air at it every week or so, and just to get the humidity down a bit and a bit more. And then as you do that, you'll notice that it'll start to cure more and start to smell better as well. And that's the storage secrets. I do, I don't know, some people just have that have watched my show have no like idea really where to start to get the to get resources and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So people need resources. They need to like the resources that I have for me are just like personal knowledge and experience. The resources that I can offer to people or myself. Like if you have questions for me, I will gladly. Well, then tell them what's up. Like tell them what's up. I don't know. Just tell him I'm having a podcast right now. If he wants to be on it, he's more than welcome. But fuck, I don't know. So people were asking me about resources and where to get the best information. If you're doing like, if you're looking for like a magazine or something like that, then I'd go with like High Times or Cannabis Culture or Skunk. All of them are good. All of them work really well. They all have different varying degrees of information. They have um, different products and different grow schedules, and some will have organic guides, and then there'll be grower specials or closet grower specials or anything of the sorts. You can find all that shit there. If you check out Leafly's great for strain information. They actually have a lot of information as well on how tinctures are made and how dabs are made, etc., etc. Maps is also a great resource as well. If you check out Maps, I don't even know what their website is. Yeah, so in comes my buddy. This is Miller. I don't know if any of you fuckers have seen this guy before, but this is Miller, and he was on a show called Crash Addicts. I highly recommend you go check it out on YouTube.
Viewed by tens weekly.
Tens
of people tuned in weekly.
He usually just hits refresh on his fucking browser at least 4 or 5 times a week. Anyways, he's a good friend of mine, and also you could say a connoisseur of cannabis. He enjoys his medical license as much as anybody else, really. Yeah, he's kind of unexpected. I wasn't really expecting him to show up. But yeah, so we got High Times or other magazines like Skunk or Cannabis Culture, etc., etc. But we could also go with Leafly. We have YouTube. YouTube, there's a great resource. I have a really fucking old channel that I haven't uploaded anything to. It's Riffle, Riffle 666. It's just a little tiny grower. I was experimenting with high pressure aero and fucking with stuff and having fun. That was really budget medical grow. So if you guys need budgeted grows, that's like probably your best resource to find them. Don't forget, Google is your friend. Google is just like, if you look up organic grow guide for cannabis, it'll tell you everything you need to know, for everything from compost teas to anything else of the sorts, really. Fucking A. Is this Kushberry? Oh, yeah. Thanks, Sasha.
Oh, thank you, Sasha.
Okay, so this is that Kushberry that I've been smoking. It's actually quite good. Smells fucking amazing. Yeah, so, and one other thing that people don't think to check is actually places like Chapters or Indigo, Booksource have a lot of growers' guides. There's a lot of grow Bibles. Like, I know Jorge Cervantes fucking has a bunch of grow Bibles and stuff. And I don't agree with 100% of his techniques. I think he's a sloppy grower. But he does, like, to get the basics on how to grow pot, you can go just about anywhere. But my main resource is experience. So I do recommend that whoever wants to learn goes and just does it. Like, just does it. If you want to grow some plants, just grow a couple, try it out, see what works. Don't try anything too fancy, but also don't be afraid that once you have that experience from starting a few plants, not to start something fancy. Like, you can go into a hydroponic system, but don't go into high pressure aero as your first grow, because you're gonna fail and then it's just gonna suck. I know this. Everybody else who knows growing knows this. That's just a much more difficult grow style. Flood and drain works well. Drip lines work well. Little mister setups, like, they work all right. Flood and, or not flood and drain, DWC works well. So deep water culture, where you have the roots submerged in a highly oxygenated nutrient solution, works really well. Like, you can get a pound and a half of plant, and that works tits. Don't be afraid to try new things. Trying new things when it comes to growing is the key to becoming a successful grower. If you keep the same thing going, like, I know growers that have been growing with Miracle Grow for the last fucking 40 years and continue to grow with Miracle Grow and will continue to grow with Miracle Grow, and it's terrible. What's up?
I lost my fucking doobies.
Good job, bud.
Thanks, man.
You're a hero. Here, I just ground this up. You can roll that.
I will.
Thanks. Fucking awesome, bud.
Oh no, thank you.
Anyways, maybe we'll have Miller on a future episode where we'll get fucking completely and utterly cooked on dabs, and maybe we'll do like a on the river episode too, because Miller and I like to go out and hang out on the river.
The lake, bud.
The lake, whatever. Fuck, it's a little stream.
Not now.
Not now. So I guess he figured out the passageways today. Fuck. But yeah, anyways, guys, this is gonna be everything today for Everyday Cannabis. I'm sorry that I'm cutting it a little short. I did have some other shit to cover, but we will be coming back to you shortly. And by shortly, I mean, like, I want to do 1 or 2 of these a week. I don't want to be stretching it out. I'm gonna work onto it. And now that I got this YouTube shit figured out where I can stream directly onto YouTube, I think that that's a huge win and makes it significantly easier for me. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to send your questions. It's at Riffle87, RIFFLE87. That's at Twitter, on YouTube. It's Riffle87 as well. Yeah, I don't think that's too difficult. If you're interested in being a guest or being on to the next Skype cast that I do, just shoot me a line on Twitter. I don't mind. Let me know what you want to talk about, and we'll arrange the details. You guys have a great night. It was awesome. Peace.